Can you give it to me? One thing that was either interesting or that you learned yesterday. Just what we talked about in class. Okay, nothing. Nothing on top of your head. Okay, Grace. Did you learn anything yesterday? Yeah. Okay, nice. Anybody else? All right, Griffin, what do you got?
I thought it was interesting how that one dude survived like 4 verses or whatever that was.
Yes, that is Rasputin. Nice. Ethan.
How long people thought that the two children. I don't know their names, but I thought it was interesting how long people thought they were alive.
Oh yeah, the two Romanovs that escaped. Anything over here? How it what? Sorry. Nice. Good, good. Lucy. So yeah, like literally, again, like top 5, 10 most important people in the world, and you got this crazy guy influencing them. Definitely. Jill?
I thought it was interesting that Rasputin was like an alcoholic and had a bunch of STDs and would just sleep with anyone.
All right. Yeah, all right. Anything else other than Rasputin back here? Anybody? Anybody? Anything other than Rasputin? We got Hannah Hiddle says the Civil War was kind of cool. Okay. Anybody else? All of you on Zoom, nothing to go with the conversation. Feel like we got Rasputin. Nobody thought it was the Great Purge, Destiny. Lenin got exiled, came back to Russia to help the revolution. Super interesting in Daniel Brunett's opinion. How about the oh yeah, someone else said that. Lucy Hiddle said Lenin that Disney lied to us saying, oh, there's never been a true communist party. Good. Nice. Yeah. What's that? Firing squad on the royal family. Would that hurt? He wouldn't live to tell. That's why he wouldn't know if it hurt or not. Nice. I thought it was interesting not only how the nationalist politicians protested, but students did too. Women should take care of their children due to lack of nutrients. Yeah. All right, cool. So it seems like Lucy, you got another one? Yeah. So the guns to soldiers ratio in World War I and how bad they fought, also interesting. Good. So I want to say, it appears just on a surface level, it might appear that the people that were in class possibly retain more information. So that's kind of frustrating. It's not, I'm not like saying like, oh, it's shame on you folks for not being here. You don't have a choice. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to bridge that gap as best I can. Okay. So only way to do that is for those of you on the Zoom right now to really try to pick up on what's happening, ask questions when you need to. Those of you in person, I know it's right after lunch. You're interested in taking a nap. That sandwich is just settling, but you need to try to keep the eyes open. For me, as a student, the first class after lunch was always the one that I had hardest time focusing and staying awake. And I don't know why. Anyways, okay. So today, I had given you a notes chart, and it looked like this. I hope it did at least. Okay, so I'm going to share it on the screen. And so what we're gonna try to do today is a lot. I'm just gonna throw it out there. There are a lot of names, so we may not totally get the names. That's not what I'm really looking for. Is I really want you to kind of just grasp like a beginning to end story, like theme, okay? Versus like totally worrying about 50 different names because you're not going to remember the names. What you're going to remember is kind of the themes that came out of it, all right? For participation, okay? Those of you on the Zoomers and those of you in person, those Zoomers, I'm going to have half the screen is something I'm sharing with you. You should be able to see the note sheet. Katya, can I get a thumbs up? Okay, great. And we're also going to put your faces on here or just your names. So when you want to participate, unmute and talk to us. All right. So as long as we get through this smoothly and people do show that they did what they're supposed to do, everyone will get participation points today. Okay. All right. So we're talking about Mexico first. Mexico is this whole deal with Mexico had a lot of names and is kind of complicated. So I'm going to do my best to help us understand it today. World War I's effect on Latin America. Anybody want to unmute and grab that or take it in class? Lucy McJunkins, pretty loud, please. Yeah, we're gonna end up the poverty increased due to agriculture, right? Like reliance on agriculture. That's a big theme throughout the 1900s as well in basically south of Texas. We're end up gonna call those. There's a nickname for those. They'll come back later in the book, but we call those banana republics, where basically these smaller countries or less politically stable countries become reliant on cash crops, kind of like a monoculture. We talked about that, and then they're in trouble. Grace, what do you got to add? All right, so Mexico had to rely on itself during the war, right? And that meant that it was kind of shown how reliant it had been on foreign investment. Good. Brooke Brown, what do you want to add?
I was going to say many Latin American countries expanded their industrial output as a process called import substitution.
All right, so they had to increase industrial output because they couldn't rely on the European or the United States to help them out. All right, so when you increase industry, typically it's hard, right? We've looked at westernization all over the world now and industrialization. It's difficult and it causes usually the poor people to suffer, right? So between farming being difficult and then a new increase in industrialization and railroads, that's going to probably, if you see this in a cyclical pattern, what political ideologies are probably going to infiltrate Mexico then? They were made in the 1800s. One starts with an S, the other one starts in a C. Socialism, and then that usually leads to communism, right? Or that kind of tension, okay, to help the lower classes. I got a chat box. In the chat box, I'm going to have trouble managing that. Okay. In the discussion here, just unmute or raise your hand if you are on Zoom, and then you can participate. If not, just listen and fill in the notes that I am sharing. All right, Porfirio Diaz. When did he take over as leader of Mexico? Anyone catch that? Liliana.
1876.
All right, so 1876. And people don't even really start to, like, people get agitated at him, but it's not until 1910 that he is basically called in for an election. So he was essentially the dictator from 1876 to 1910. In 1910, anyone catch how old he was? Ashton?
He was 80 years old.
Yeah. Sounds like he could have been an American president at this time. Yikes. For the US. Anyways, bad joke. All right. Why was he not liked? This is what I want people to recognize for this one. Anybody want to participate in class or on Zoom? Lucy. Good. Did not listen to the lower classes. Liliana, real loud, please.
The political system was corrupt and he allowed no complaints.
All right. Corrupt political system. And Hannah Hiddle.
There was repression of workers and peasants, and yeah, like Liliana said, like he played dirty when it came to politics.
Yeah. I actually wrote down he favored foreigners and wealthy landowners and really only listened to them. So government aimed towards the upper classes. Typically, the lower classes are going to have a problem. I'm going to change my system here. Give me 1 second. All right. This could be really loud. I apologize if it is. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that? Anyone out here? You can understand why he was not well liked. All right. Let's talk about U.S. influence then. What kind of influence did the United States have on Mexico? Hannah.
Political or diplomatic and economic.
What does the word diplomatic mean? Nobody knows what that means.
Like
And
they
we don't know what
said-
economic means either. So you need to
I'll just give an example.
use the common people's terms. Stop being a Porfirio Diaz to us.
Okay.
We'll be like that guy. Talk to us.
I said they owned and like 20% of the of Mexico's territory.
Write that down. Why is that bad? Why is that bad, folks? Anybody? Yeah, you don't have control over your own land. And how are U.S. business? It's not the United States that owns the land. It's a metaphor for the United States. It's a metaphor for the United States businesses, like large businesses owning Mexico. Does that make sense? So how can they treat the workers? Mines or in even big farms or in railroad industry. They can treat them however they want to. We see a continuation of this today. Brooke Brown.
I said the U.S. also intervened, trying to bring order to the border regions of Mexico.
Yeah. U.S. border issues with Mexico. Wow. Huh. Does that sound familiar? A little bit. Anyone see Joe Biden's, what he released yesterday as an executive order was to create a cabinet position to try to reunite families that were separated in the last 4 years. Okay, so again, very real world here. All right, insert Francisco Madero. Interesting story. Madero was what? What happened to him? Well, he was eventually assassinated, but at first he challenged Diaz, right? So he challenged Diaz, and what happened after that, Brooke?
Diaz didn't really like what he was going to try to do, so he imprisoned him.
Yeah, so Diaz allowed there to be an election, but when they had the election, they put the dude in jail, who was actually a person who could run against him. What do you think about that, Victoria? Do you think anybody? Do you think that's good or not? Is that a sign of a democratic election? Not at all. Okay, that's like a Russian election. You get 3 people on the ballot, Putin, Putin, or Putin. So you can choose which one you want, but they're all the same. All right, so when Madero is put in jail, he eventually escapes, and he is going to lead a revolution. Okay. Even though Diaz wins the election, that's 1910. All right, so here's where the names get all crazy. All right, you've got Pancho Villa, Zapata, who still has soldiers named after him called the Zapatistas. Super interesting. Southern Mexico, still kind of agitating using guerrilla warfare. And Victoriana Huerta. All right. Pancho Villa, you're gonna learn more about him, but where was he from? Anybody know? North, central, or south? Brooke.
North.
All right, he was from the north, and he was a rancher, basically a bandit turned rancher. Okay, so he was good fighter, could ride a horse well, and he was a caudillo. Do you guys remember that vocab word? Okay, caudillo. So he was like a farmer, rancher / like had his own kind of army, paramilitary man as well. He's going to lead a rebellion in the north. In the south, you've got Zapata. Okay, who did Zapata represent? Lucy McJunkins. All right, lower classes, in particular natives and poor farmers. Okay, and most of you can see the Sociedad de Castas. I told you it would never disappear in Mexico and Central and South America. You see the remnants here, right? Okay, the effect. All right, and then Victoriana Huerta. Who is this guy? So we can get Liliana. What do you think?
He wanted to have a Diaz-type dictatorship supported by large landowners, the army, and foreign companies.
Bingo. Wanted a dictatorship and was supported by the army, really, but upper class. So of the three, who actually wins out? Anybody know? The correct answer is. Anybody know who actually wins out? Brooke?
I didn't mean to let my hand up.
Oh. None of these people take up power, okay? Makes sense? So they're just creating a kind of a chaotic situation. Obregón, ends up defeating rebel forces. And what does he do to defeat the rebel forces? What does he use? Griffin. All right. Use machine guns. Machine guns and trenches. So this is a basically, taking on peasant armies with crude weapons, and or people on horseback are not going to exist versus men running around with machine guns, right? You get the point? All right. And then what's the revolutionary elite? Anyone pick up on that? All right, I'm not too much. Brooke, what'd you get? Make it quick, please.
It was a series of presidents who tried to consolidate the new regime.
Say that a little slower.
A series of presidents who tried to consolidate the new regime.
Regime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, a non-liberal military-based government. Does that sound fun? Non-liberal military-based government, or you could say conservative. Not great for the people either. So there's a push towards a constitution. What were some of the rights in the Constitution? I need some more people to participate here. Some of you that are being quiet on the Zoom. Yeah, go ahead. All right, so promised land reform. Good. Katya.
It wanted to limit dependence on foreigners.
Yeah, yep. Good. Jill.
They want to limit how much ownership foreigners can have on resources from their land.
Yeah. Limit ownership of limit foreigners owning parts of Mexico.
And maybe like place restrictions on church ownership of property.
Aha. Restrictions on the church as well. This would continue all the way into the 1990s. Power of the church. Seems like they're fighting what was fought in Europe in the 1700s, right? Lucy McJunkins. Education reforms, good. And also workers, like better workers' rights. So a liberal constitution is what we're going to sum that up as. Okay. Let's move on then to indigenism and Diego Rivera. Let's make it kind of quick. Can somebody throw me the definition for indigenism? Shoot. Concern for indigenous people and their what? Contribution to Mexican culture. Yeah, so there's a reason why Diego Rivera then painted kind of what was the indigenous people to Mexico. He's a famous artist. Can anyone explain his art? Did anybody look it up? It's kind of neat on Google or anything. No. Well, he was famous for making murals. Many of them still exist, highlighting the way of life of the poor and Native Americans. All right. All right. So last but not least, PRI. This party is going to take over in 1929, and it's going to rule all the way until the year 2000. It also wins the election in 2012 and lost in 2018. There hasn't been an election since. There's an election every 6 years. It itself stands for the party of the oh man, institutionalized. Liliana, help me out. I'm losing it.
The party of the institutionalized revolution.
That's what I was going for. Institutionalized. Try to say that one and type it really fast at the same time. That's not going to happen. Essentially, because of the way they set up the government, it was a dictatorship. Yeah, there were elections, but who won? Folks, you with me? Who would win the election? PRI would win, right? Okay, and they won for a long time and essentially set up a corrupt government where a police force and elites would make sure they promised, peasants, labor, middle class, and military to support them, but essentially they just took over the government and then used police corruption to maintain control for an unprecedented amount of time in the 20th and 21st century, 71 years. And they're still around to this day. Okay. That technically, in 1920, the revolution ends when they elect a president. But in reality, like I said, it's 1910, 1920, the revolution, but really it's not that successful because the PRA set up a dictatorship. All right, we got to move on to China. That took exponentially too long. So we're gonna move this faster. Lily Dole, what do we want to know about the fall of the Qing dynasty?
So the fall of the Qing dynasty started with like the resignation of Puyi, the child emperor.
All right, so last emperor is gone, and when China falls into chaos, what happens? Lucille Hiddle.
A lot of revolutionary threats start happening, like the Taiping rebellion, if that's right. And then
We talked about Taiping and Boxer, right?
yeah, and then also the Qin dynasty was failing to protect its citizens from foreign invaders.
The Qing dynasty.
Yeah, the Qing, sorry.
Cookies. Bring us our cookies. It's okay. His brother's name is Quinn too, so it's like, oh, Quinn. All right. All right, good. So you got many different rebellions, obviously in the late 1800s, and then warlords are going to take over. These regional warlords, probably the most famous one, is Yuan Shikai. What did you pick up? Anyone in class want to help us out here? What did we pick up on Yuan Shikai? Yes, sir. Yeah, good. From northern China, and tried to be the next emperor. All right. Tell me a little more about Sun Yat-sen and kind of his importance here. This is where it gets a little confusing. Go ahead. All right. He was Western educated. We talked about that a little bit before, and headed up the what was it called? Revolutionary. All right. This is going to be the first group to reunify China after the fall of the Qing. Okay, the Revolutionary Alliance. He actually he was banned in 1912 and sent out of China, and Yuan Shikai took over for him. But then Sun Yat-sen would come back and become the de facto leader for about 5 years in the early 1920s. All right, everyone remembers Japan's 21 demands, right? Is this a review? Can somebody give me a quick definition on Japan's 21 demands? Go ahead, Ethan. All right, so Japanese, right? I don't know if I heard you say that. Japanese attempt to what? All right, hold over China, and somebody on Zoom, tell me, were they able to do this? Why did it fail? Lily Dole.
The other like countries, like they butted in and told them not to. They couldn't do it.
Good. And at the Treaty of Versailles, remember, they were forced to give this back, right? And concede a lot of the land they had taken and concessions they had used. Okay, May 4th movement. Anybody in here? Anybody on there? I don't care. Throw it out. Nobody. All right, Lily, ZS.
So student and nationalist politicians organized mass demonstrations because they were enraged that they thought they were betrayed by the Entente powers.
Yeah, so basically students, politicians, and people with money in Beijing protested the TOV, Treaty of Versailles. All right, and the fact that China was, could have been worse for them, but it didn't get much better. You're going to add to that, Lily or Lucille? Sorry, Lucy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that they rejected like really deep root Chinese and Japanese ideology. Like they rejected Confucianism ideas.
Yes, and this was again led by a more liberal, educated group of people. All right, so Kaylee, what do you want to add?
I was just gonna add that it was seen in a lot of newspapers and like speeches. So then it was spread. The idea was spread to other people easily.
Yeah, and this was heard throughout the world. This wouldn't have been an isolated incident. Newspapers would have carried this around. All right, so communist routes, Li Dazhao and Mao Zedong. Basically, let's kind of call this Marxism in China. What was the difference between Marxism in China and Marxism in the Soviet Union? Anybody feel free to help out here. Different from Russia because anyone? Many more farmers and peasants than industrial workers. ... Does that make sense? So you've got to figure out how to combine a agricultural group of people, and that was what Mao Zedong tried to do. And so essentially the Soviets, or what I told you guys yesterday called the Comintern, set up a school Comintern. Set up a school for the spread of communism, and they were convinced that communism was going to spread throughout China right away. What they didn't realize is that the Kuomintang, this is also known as the Nationalist Party, would also then emerge, and this was Sun Yat-sen coming back again. And then once he died, who replaced him? Yeah, Ethan. Chiang Kai-shek. Is that what you're trying to say? I think it's this how you spell it. I could be way off. I'm sure I'm off. In fact, I know I'm off. I'm not that far off, to be honest, though. Probably need to separate this, put a little S there. So Chiang Kai-shek would lead the Kuomintang. This was the Nationalist Party, and this was the party where basically they were rivals to the communists, all right? So you had the Nationalist Party versus the communists. Okay, the simple way I can explain this, they were forced to get along on two different occasions. In the 1920s, they came together, and then they'll split again, and we'll explain that here in a second, all the way till 1949. They get together in World War II, kind of, but they never really liked each other. The Whampoa Military Academy and Chiang Kai-shek. What was this whole thing? Anyone in here? Anyone on Zoom? Hiddle, Lucy?
It was basically like this military like school founded with the help by the Soviets, and it was like staffed by Russians. And then Chiang Kai-shek like became the most powerful leader in China in the early 1930s, but his nationalist forces were defeated by the communists after World War II.
Yeah, but the military school based on Soviet money and training, and they essentially were trying to spread communism around the world. But then it would end up losing to Japan, and that's when the Soviets said, okay, we're going to pull our money and resources out. Okay, Japan started occupying China again in the early 1930s when they realized the rest of the world was in a depression. Okay. So the nationalist rise to power then is basically this leader, Chiang Kai-shek, and that's who the United States is going to recognize as the official leader of China. And he's going to turn his back on Mao Zedong. And Mao Zedong is actually forced to take the communists or people that were sympathizers to him to the hills of Lucy, yeah, or Lily. So Lily Dole.
Oh, I think the book also mentioned that it's like, that wasn't it supported by like the criminal underworld,
The communists or the nationalists?
nationalists, or the,
Yep.
okay.
Well, the nationalists were. It's weird because they were supported by the U.S. They were supported by Great Britain. They were supported by people with money. Essentially, everyone who didn't want communism. All right. And remember, this growing difference between communism and capitalism was kind of why the gap was widening with the Soviet takeover. All right, the Long March, though, I want to say it was somewhere about over 6,000 miles, and only 10% made it. But from there, Mao used it as his base to make communism more popular for the peasants. And a lot of you know how the rest of the story goes. He's going to end up kind of teaming up with the nationalists in World War II. But then after World War II, they split again. The U.S. tries to prop up the nationalists as much as they can, but they lose to the communists. And do Russian and Chinese communists get along? No. Two different ideologies, and neither of them are true communism. All right. So after we went over this whole thing with all these gross details, who comes out? Who does the West? Who's our biased textbook want to make us look good? Sun Yat-sen, because he wanted, the liberal, wanted to make it a democracy, etc. They make Chiang Kai-shek to look at like being an average guy, which he probably was, a little bit power hungry. And they make Mao Zedong look really bad because they'll end up leading a communist revolution, and the West did not like communism after World War II. Everyone with me on that? All right. Awesome. I didn't think we could do it, but we defied the odds of timing, and we were able to get through that in a somewhat manageable fashion. Thank you for those who participated. All right. We got to move on to our next task then. Okay. So I've got to get a new share here, and I'm going to figure out where I want to go on this new share. It is over here. Perfect. All right. Due to the nature of this school year that we have, can you guys see what's called the Totalitarian Leaders Government Assignment on your screen?
You're still on screen share from the Google Doc.
Okay, I'm gonna try again. I'll show you. Now can you see it?
Yeah.
All right, those of you in class, I'll make it bigger for you. All right. Everybody's going to be picking / getting assigned, depends on what order you get, a country or a government that led to totalitarianism or turned to totalitarian forms of government because of the Great Depression and basically the failure of the Treaty of Versailles. Okay. There are 5 we're going to be looking at: Germany, Russia, Italy, Spain, and Japan. Okay. I kind of gave you a heads up on where to go with this. Germany is the rise of the Third Reich. Russia is the formation of the USSR, and then kind of what we talked about yesterday. Italy is fascism with Mussolini. Spain is Francisco Franco and nationalism, even though it was an authoritarian government, totalitarian government. And then Japan was military dictatorship or militant dictatorship. Okay. For whichever one you are assigned, you're going to be making Google slides. Okay. Each of the following categories will have a slide. And remember, only bullet points, and less is more here, as in I don't want paragraphs. So a title slide: name, your name, the country, the flag, the symbol of the regime. This should be pretty simple to find. How they came to power. Pick 5 important steps. Okay, the stories could be, there's probably 10 hours of documentary on how Mussolini took power in Italy. I want 5, the most important 5. That's where you're making a judgment call. Go, totalitarian actions. Let's give you an example of that. The Japanese elevated the position of the emperor to a living god, and people had to have shrines in their house. Okay, that would be a totalitarian move. You could say the Third Reich, a totalitarian move was seizing Austria, even though they weren't allowed to in the, or that's a imperialistic. Sorry, a totalitarian move could be telling all Jews that they're no longer citizens and seizing their bank accounts. Okay. Imperialistic actions. This could be the Japanese invasion of China. You with me on that? Remember, I think most of you know what imperialism means. And then the next 3 slides are just primary sources. Okay. And then what the primary source is. No explanation of it. I don't need your analysis of it. I don't need you to soapstone it or anything. I just want the sources there so that when we go to review them together, or you're going to have an assignment to go review the 4 you don't do, that you can see primary sources and analyze them on your own. Okay, everyone got that? Then a citations page, minimum of 5 resources. Make sure you use resources that are outside of Wikipedia, okay? I know you're going to go there and maybe get some background knowledge, but find other resources, please. MLA format, if you don't know how to do that, Purdue OWL, if you want a long explanation, or just use EasyBib or citationmachine.net. Those are much easier. And make sure that you put your citations in alphabetical order. I'm nitpicky on that. Okay, when I went to grad school, I lost points on that a couple times and I got so mad. Now I decided to be a bully to you. No, I'm just kidding. It's the proper way to do it, okay? Are you with me on that? I mean, I think in English class, I'm sure they're way stricter on that than I'm going to be. Just do one thing for me. Put them in alphabetical order and put them in MLA format. So if I want to check you on your sources, okay? Remember, don't plagiarize too. Everyone cool with that? We know what that is. It means some of this is common knowledge. More than 4 words in a row is typically plagiarism unless it's common knowledge. Like Adolf Hitler was the dictator of Nazi Germany between 1931 and 1945. That is very common knowledge. Mr. Renshaw could have said the same thing. I could have said the same thing. Owen could have said the same thing. That's common knowledge. Okay. But some stuff's not common knowledge. That's where you need to put it in your own words and then cite it in your citation slide. Okay. Here's how the grading is going to work. Very simple. Each slide's worth 5 points. Okay. This is information for me that I know like the back of my hand too. So shouldn't be too difficult. Participation then is they're going to have tomorrow in class to work on this. Okay. So you're going to get to kind of self-guide, independent, teach yourself this and do it on your own. Monday, I'm going to give you a little bit of stuff to do, but there's no quiz on Monday. All right. And then I'm going to gauge your creativity, organization, quality is going to be 5 points for a total of 50 points. So basically half a test or a little more. Due by Tuesday at 11 a.m. All right. Everyone with me? That's plenty of time, I think, for you to slap this together and put some, make it look quality. All right. If you want to use Canva or something like that, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you have another alternative cool source, I would defer to not use Prezi though. Whatever you use, put it into a Google Slides eventually. Okay. Because if you do like Prezi or some of these other ones, we're not going to be able to look at them as a class, and they get kind of, when you copy and paste or when you send them to me, they get weird and you have to send them as PDFs. I don't really want that. Okay. All right. Here's how we're going to decide how we do this then. I'm going to stop the share. That is obviously in Canvas for those of you wondering where it is. Yep. It's called Chapter 30 Mini Project. Thank you, Jill. Do I need to put these notes on Canvas for kids who are absent? Probably. And here's how we're going to do this. So I've got the project sign up. Everybody look here. Notice that the most anyone can do is 6 per class. I'm going to share that with screen. All right. Most you can do is 6 per class. Period 7-8. I will put your name on the line here. when you claim it. So I'll be putting your names here and make that a little bit smaller. We will either start at the beginning of the alphabet or at the end of the alphabet, depending on a coin flip of heads or tails. All right. Oh, we got a question. Brooke, you got to wait. Everyone wants to do Germany, I'm sure. Okay. Here's how this works. We got I had a coin. Where'd it go? Oh, I got a coin right here. Katya. Oh, actually, no. Stanley, are you on this thing? You skipped today. That's okay. A nice day off. Lillian ZS, you out there?
Yeah.
All right, call heads or tails.
Tails.
It's heads. We start with Stanley, who's not here. So we go to Liliana. Oh, what do you want, Liliana?
Germany.
Okay, Liliana, why is that? I don't want it over there. I want it over here. All right, then we go to Sam Barker, also taking the day off. So we go to Katya.
Russia.
All right, Russia. Then we go to Brooke Brown.
Germany.
Yeah, I know. Okay, Destiny.
Germany.
Wow. Pick something you don't know that much about. All right, Kaylee.
I'll do Italy.
All right. Luella.
Russia.
Russia. Okay, we got Lily Dole. Quickly,
do-
please.
Can I do Italy?
Yes, you can. All right, Kat Edwards, not here today. Catherine Genrich. Dang, we got a war of attrition today. H. Hittle.
Can I do Russia?
Yep. Lucille Hittle.
I'll do Japan.
All right. All right. Ashton James.
I'll do Germany.
Okay. Then that takes us to Grace Lane. All right. If you've picked yours, feel free to get off the Zoom and get to work if you want to, or take a little mental break. Thanks for your participation. You were wonderful today. Grace Lane, you said Russia? Okay. Lucy. Okay. Nyla.
Japan.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right, let's go Griffin. Okay, Jackson. Okay, E-Ray. Yes, sir. All right, Owen. Okay, Germany, the Deutschland is done. And that was Owen, is that right? Way to close out the group. All right, Sam Sewell. Russia is finished. Okay, let's go Mushi. We got Spain, Italy, Japan. All right, Vivian Taylor, not here. Ethan. Nice. I think you'll find it to be very interesting. Spanish Civil War, honestly. Very, very, the precursor to World War II. All right, Vincent is not here. Victoria. Spain? Okay. Remember, there are a lot of sources out there on this stuff. This is pretty common stuff, too. Jill? Yep. And Lillian ZS.
Italy.
Okay. Thank you, Lillian. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, just in case you're watching a recording of this, because there's a lot of people absent, you can pick one of these that is not filled up, please. Make sure you send me a message telling me what you're picking. Have a great day if you're watching this online. That's unfortunate.